Perfect. Thank you very much.
Okay, Diane, we're ready to move on to the update on the inn and asylum suites.
But Diane isn't
Diane
here.
Ah,
But I can tell you what we're meeting tomorrow as a board. I think it's tomorrow, and things are going well. The challenge is that, of course, being in a hotel where we're at right now is more expensive than being in a church, and so we're dealing with those types of issues, trying to figure out how to overcome them. But the organization itself is running well. Always needs more. Always needs more volunteers. So if you would like to volunteer, then please get hold of her.
okay. Yeah,
June, can you do that?
yeah.
She's fine. She's just fallen asleep. She's done that before.
Okie doke. Then we will move on to finance.
Very much. So the Finance Committee met a week ago on May the 11th. We reviewed the report for April and looked at our year-to-date financials. We did have some discussion about the fact that even though we're in a positive position right now, after 1/3 of the year, we anticipate heavier expenses as we reopen. And just as a note to all of you, we had budgeted both for higher income and higher expenses for the period of September to December. And we had a crystal ball, and who knows how well shined up it was and how well it worked. So we will, it was a guessing game back when we were developing this budget as to where we'd be with COVID and if we'd even be able to reopen. So there were lots of questions, and some of the questions remain. So in terms of the monthly income for April, we totaled just under $40,000 of income. We had projected just about $35,000. So that's a very good place to be in. In terms of the monthly expenses for April, just under $30,000, and we had projected closer to $34,000. So again, higher in income, lower in expenses, positive picture, yay. So that means we had actually a net income for this 1 month of just over $10,000. So year to date, when we look at that, total income has been just under $140,000. Expenses have been around $136,000. So when you actually get down to the dollars and cents and down to the pennies, net income for the first 4 months of the year, the first third of the year, our net income is $2,000. So again, to the positive, and we were pleased about that. The committee moved on to discuss the apportionment allocation, making sure that all the members of the committee were clued into what had happened at the community discussion on Zoom. We had decided at the point of the meeting last week that if the church council did approve the apportionments as we had expected and has happened, that as our treasurer / bookkeeper, David is going to make some accounting adjustments so that the amount paid out in the apportionments directly that relates to hunger, homelessness, and poverty, which is $35,100, can be charged to the $73,000 estate gift that we received earlier this year. And so of that amount, what we discussed was the possibility of setting aside funds for the 2021 apportionments while we're in that positive position. And the suggested amount that we discussed was $28,000, which corresponds to the amount if we were putting aside 1/12 of what we owe every month for the 4 months, about $7,000 a month, that would be the $28,000. So the committee was in favor of taking those actions, but we understood that the church council would need to bless going ahead and setting aside funds for apportionments, because once we set them aside, I think at least Jim's philosophy is once they're set aside, they're as if we paid them, and so we don't go back and reverse it. So, is the council in favor of doing an actual apportionment set aside or just a set aside until we decide firmly that that's what we want to do? I can go on and then we could circle back to that question. We did discuss several items related to personnel, which Sue has already talked about, and talked about the amount to pay the people and all of that. We ended up in a philosophical discussion really about our salary structure, agreeing that we're not exactly well known for paying great salaries, and yet we have wonderful people who work for St. Francis. We decided that as a finance committee, it should be our responsibility, and I imagine at the same time, maybe SPRC, to really look at all the compensation and benefits that we have in place, what our structure is, if you can call it that, before we start building next year's budget. And the hope would be that in terms of our philosophy, that, given the fact that we feel so fortunate we have talented and dedicated staff, that maybe by having fewer people, we will be able to pay those that we have more. And also when we're out of the COVID crisis and our income changes, to be able to look at that as we build a new budget for 2022. We did talk about the possible consolidation of some of the music duties. So that means depending more on Cynthia in the future. We acknowledge that there's going to be a need if she takes on those additional responsibilities. The pianist will be needed. And I think Jim informed us that Cynthia's new start date is in August. And there's been a discussion of her actually even moving to a 12-month contract. So we know Celebration Team, Sue, Pastor Jim, everybody's talking about what's the right thing to do, what's the best thing to do, and to actually collaborate with Cynthia about what her desires and hopes are for the future. Additionally, we had a new piece of business where we were asked to send a representative to a new group that is discussing a memorial garden for the campus. And our newest member of our committee, John Everhart, agreed to represent the finance committee. So that is taken care of. Last, we talked about the audit, which we had originally postponed until May, June, because our auditor wasn't going to be available because of the tax deadline being extended to May 17th. Everything else sort of slipped a little bit. And so getting back in touch with her so that she can connect and work with Melissa and David. She already has the written guidelines. She knows what we need to have done. She's given us a very reasonable estimate of the cost. And so that will be underway. And by the time the church council gets together again after the summer break, we should have an audit report. And our decision was that we will not be meeting in June. We think we must meet in July, and we'll figure out later about August. So that concludes my report from the Finance Committee.
Okay, thank you. Questions?
I apologize, I had not, but I was, in terms of the apportionment, did we actually put in the budget the full amount of apportionment? So that what we're doing is setting aside the first, whatever the 20,000, that portion of it. Is that?
Yes.
That's already in the budget. The problem is that we've gotten into a very easy habit of letting that be the last thing we pay in the budget.
I know.
So I guess the question is, a firm set aside, designating it a set aside for apportionment, and therefore it's like spending it now, or are you nervous about what's going to be happening over the coming months as we go through the year and feel hesitant to go ahead and spend that money until we know how we stand? And we, the Finance Committee had a philosophical discussion, but we know we're not the ones to decide that really.
Well, we go back into the fundamental. I'm delighted and proud that we were able to move ahead regarding, the 2019 and 2020 and get that taken care of. But the underlying issues, concerns out there about the Methodist Church and where it's going, and where it's currently kind of in limbo. I think that has to be taken into consideration. And somehow, I don't know how we balance both those out. But obviously, there was the brakes were put on, last couple of years, we're not going to get anything. I'm delighted the way we moved ahead, at least with the money there, but now it's an open slate in terms of how do we deal with it now, in terms of the wide range of opinion and split there is among some of the members of the congregation on that. And so
I think we maybe naively, but assumed that because this is working so well for 19 and 20, that we would probably follow the same process for 21, because we don't see the United Methodist Church changing between now and the end of this calendar year.
So
So
what-
the objections that people have had before and the preferences that people have had for supporting certain kinds of ministry that are very consistent with our values. When we talk about the set aside, it's with that understanding that we would be in a position, again, before the dollars actually leave our account, that there would be some designations that we would place and restrictions that we would place on that money.
Excellent. I mean,
Yeah, I would be comfortable with that. I have a hesitancy about what is coming down the pike.
Yeah, and we do not want to do something that allows anybody to think we're supporting something that is stepping directly on people's rights that are very important to us.
Yes,
I think that's a lot of the issue behind this. And so the way we've spent the money tonight is a way of being able to say, good, we're spending money in the correct way to support that. So that's what we would have to do. And I love that we're essentially, if we set that 28,000 there, we're paid up to this time in 2021. And that we haven't been that far along for a long time.
That would be encouraging, yeah.
well, in this case, Paula, are you asking for the church council to make a decision this evening about this?
Oh, really? Yes.
Yeah, I understood that. Okay, so could I have a motion? Paula, would you be willing to make the motion?
Yeah, I think on behalf of the committee to make the motion that we do the set aside of $28,000 when these accounting steps have been taken and we actually have the funds available to set aside for designated, or shall we say restricted apportionments for 2021.
I second.
Thank you, Wendy.
Oh,
Yeah, Jim,
thank
could you let my video show? It says you stopped it. Thank
There you go.
There she is. Yeah, thank you, Wendy. So the motion has been made and second. All those in favor, raise your hand. All those opposed? It's unanimous.
Thank you. I'm proud of us.
I am too. And it was
Thank you.
very clear. So we have come to the end of the meeting. We will not meet again until September, unless there is a major question that arises during the summer. And before we go, are there announcements?
I just would like to say it's nice to see Laurel. I believe you were the one that made sure help came to Carol Eisenman.
Oh, it was my pleasure. Carolyn's a wonderful person, and I'm just glad I was there.
I'm so
are
glad you went there and that you stuck with it till she was helped. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Art,
Yes.
I volunteered on behalf of Creative Arts to serve on the Memorial Garden team. I haven't heard anything, and I can't remember the guy's name.
David Daniel.
Thank you. Okay, got it.
Yeah, I think they're still gathering their volunteer force.
I think so too. I didn't want to feel really stupid and say, I can't remember, and I couldn't find the email, so there you go.
Okay. Any other announcements? Well, in that case, Jim,
Thank you for your work today. I think this is, after a year of unsettling, right? Of shaky grounds, everything we did today feels like a solidifying of everything.
uh-huh.
And that's good stuff to do, isn't it? So thank you for that. My prayer is that as we move forward, we will continue to use that solid ground to step upward, step forward, and do miracles again. Amen.
Amen.
Man.
Thank you,
Yes.
my friends.
So I hope everyone has a wonderful summer. See you in the fall in person.
Yes, in person.
Maybe
Yay.
see you at St. Francis in the meantime. Woo!
There you go.
Take care, my friends.
Okay.
Thank you all.
Adios.
Bye.
Bye.